If you take a closer look at the word triumph, then triumph, as we understand it today, means victory over a challenge. No matter whether in the private sector, or in the career, or professional life. But what many do not know, is that the word triumph was invented in the ancient epic. More specifically, the rulers of the Roman Empire brought this term into vogue at the time. What was the meaning of this term in the time of the Roman Empire? At this time, the generals of the Roman Empire made a great triumphal march through the capital Rome, and each stage of the triumphal procession had its fixed order and a specific meaning. But it was more than that. With a sacrifice to the gods, the general became a private man again, put on the toga, and ended his military service. In this video, I tell you the story about the Roman triumph. Here we go. The triumph was not an event in ancient Rome that served exclusively for entertainment. Even before the birth of Jesus Christ, triumph in the Roman Empire was a ceremony with a fixed process, celebrating victory over an enemy. The first triumph was in honor of the first king and founder held by Rome, King Romulus. At a very young age, Romulus was drawn into a conflict with a neighboring people. Romulus promised the god Jupiter that if he gains victory over the enemy, then he will become such a huge one, organize a festival like never before. The captured weapons and goods of the defeated enemy are taken along on the triumphant march and shown to the public. But there was no war on a large scale. The king of the enemy neighboring people has Romulus challenged to a one-on-one duel. Romulus accepted the challenge, and in a one-on-one duel, he was able to defeat enemy king. In all rejoicing at victory, and believing the gods have him in battle assisted, Romulus marched his troops in parade, with a laurel wreath on his head, through the city of Rome. Romulus put on his best and most beautiful clothes, and proudly displayed the captured weapons of the vanquished enemy to public. From that point on, the triumph became a tradition in the Roman Empire. A triumph was de jure the only occasion on which a Roman army could enter the city of Rome under arms. Therefore, in order to lead his men through the city, the Triumphator had to be in possession of the imperium, of a military command. Normally he lost this automatically the moment in which he entered the city. Therefore, until the day of triumph, the emperor had to be with his legions, encamped outside the pomerium, the sacred city limits, while he discussed the holding of the triumph, with the Senate negotiated. If he crossed the pomerium beforehand, without special permission from the Senate, thus, along with his imperium, he also lost the right to a triumph. This is what happened in 60 BC. Gaius Julius Caesar, after his return from Hispania. Since then, the triumphs, or, to put it another way, triumphal marches have always been carried out in the same order in the Roman Empire. The general or the emperor himself is pompous, proud, and has entered a large city with a large orchestra. The trophies captured in battle, such as weapons, armor or gold, prisoner leader and slaves, who were taken from the enemy, proudly presenting to the public. The triumphal procession, led from the field of Mars, through the Porta Triumphalis, the Forum Boarium, further through the Circus Maximus, via the Forum Romanum to the Capitol, where the Triumphator in front of the Temple of Jupiter, Optimus Maximus, finally offered a solemn sacrifice, and thus fulfilled the vow, done before the start of a campaign. In research, it is disputed whether the Triumphator can be seen as a king, or as an embodiment of Jupiter on the day of the triumphal procession. If that of his troops' commanders previously acclaimed as emperor were denied a regular triumph, or he himself forced to cross the pomerium first, he evidently could, instead of moving to the capital, also to the Albanerberg in front of the city, but this was seen as a second-class triumph by the Roman citizens. The victorious army formed the conclusion. The soldiers had the opportunity to take aim at the human weaknesses of their general, in songs of praise and satire, called in Latin, iosi militares. The triumph always remained the same in its course, but the participants have changed depending on the time of the Roman Empire, and the ruler changed. For example, at the time of the Republic, the Triumphator sat on a horse, in the triumphal procession in imperial times, on a gold-decorated chariot. A well-preserved written record describes the triumph of Emperor Lucius Domitius Aurelianus, or Aurelian for short. According to historians, this triumph differs from the triumphs of other emperors in its magnificent implementation. In his war against the Germans, Aurelian was able to fend off an invasion and achieve victory. Quoted from the historical sources about Aurelian, not only did the emperor take the weapons of the enemy from the campaign brought, among his trophies, which the crowds in Rome stared at, were also wild animals locked in cages, such as lions, tigers, or elephants and giraffes were walked in the triumphal march. End of quote. Of course, no lions and tigers were native to Germania, but Emperor Aurelian had to for an impressive and sumptuous realization of these animals. According to historical sources, around 200 animals were counted during this triumphal procession. Most of these animals were killed at the end of the triumph, as was traditionally done by the Romans. Some animals were brought into the arenas to fight with the gladiators and the crowds to entertain. Except for the animals, which were paraded through the streets of Rome in triumph, the triumph also had entire columns of slaves in tow. These slaves were of different origins: Goths, Marcomanns, Vandals, Gauls, and these were not yet all the peoples who were subdued by the Roman Empire. Some of them became gladiators, others served in wealthy households or worked up agricultural fields. Among the slaves taken from the campaign were also women, who wore warlike men's clothes. According to contemporary witnesses, these were Amazons. Each slave had a shield around his neck in front of him, on which was written the slave's dominion. A few hours passed before the triumph marched through the whole city of Rome. In some cases, the triumph could even end late in the evening, past the Capitol, and on to the Palatine Hill. After the triumph, in honor of the gods, and to celebrate the glory and victory of Rome, the reigning emperor, bread and games arranged for the next few days or even weeks. The program for the games was tremendous. The citizens of Rome could choose between gladiator fights, theatrical performances, maritime naval battles on rivers, or even in the arenas, and acrobatic and circus events. The triumph was not just a solemn ceremony. This event also had another important tremendous significance. Thus, the triumph was carried out by the commander, who won the victory at the front for the Roman Empire. After the triumph, this general also received prestige and honor from the citizens of Rome. This had an enormous impact on the reputation of this person. The commander had to not always be the emperor. It could also be an ordinary general, serving under an emperor. For this reason, the politicians were always anxious to take part in a campaign themselves. The triumph was accomplished only when the campaign was over, and the victory of Rome could no longer be questioned. There were some conditions under which the triumph could be carried out. For example, only when at least 5,000 enemy armed warriors have been killed. Once a Roman soldier or general became an important face in a triumph, Roman law allowed him to wear ceremonial triumph armor on holidays and celebrations. Thus, the citizens of Rome could recognize the victorious and honored soldier by his special clothing. The Triumphator stood out from the crowd with a purple-red cloak. This color represented power, strength, blood shed by the legionnaires on the battlefields for Rome. If in the event that a newly inaugurated emperor held a triumph without stopping having taken part in a military campaign, a statue was built for him, which is incorporated the ranks of all previous triumphators of Rome. I hope you enjoyed the video. If so, please leave a thumbs up and subscribe. See you soon, your channel History Best.